thank you so much for
Mm-mm.
joining us for City Chats
Mm.
with Joyce. I am Joyce Dooley, the Senior Research Analyst for Zpryme, and today we have a special guest joining us from the City of Frisco. We have Jason Cooley. He's the Chief Innovation Officer. We're going to be talking about building an innovation ecosystem. You know, cities are trying to adopt a variety of technologies and processes to improve access to services, create efficiencies, and improve overall quality of life for residents. But building an innovative culture can be difficult, and expanding that to an ecosystem can seem quite daunting. So, we're going to dive in here with
Right.
Jason in just a minute and find out a little bit more about what they've got going on in Frisco. So, thank you for joining us today, Jason. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's a timely discussion to have, and I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, no, we're incredibly excited to have you on today. So what makes you so passionate about smart cities, and why do you do what you do?
Sure. I think part of it is it, I'll use the word organic several times today during the conversation, and this whole process with whether it's smart cities, technology, innovation, however you want to deem it, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But really, it came out of a need, and the need was we were being approached for our use of many different services, and so I really became the clearinghouse, if you will, for all of those things. So whether it be vendor requests or pilot projects, but what we realized was there was a lot of things that we were being offered that one, we could use, two, we could already doing it, but also at the same time taking a step back, looking at the city of Frisco. uh, the profile of the city is one that has been one of the fastest growing cities in the country for the last 5 or 6 years, really 10 years. And knowing that that is our alignment, that is our culture of growth, of expansion, we still have to be able to provide those levels of services, that high level of services to our citizens today and those that are looking to move into the city in the future. And so there's only a couple of ways we can do that. We can expand budgets, which gets harder and harder to do every year just to have more revenue, more expenditures. That's one. But two, we can be more efficient, more productive, and in some cases lean on the way we're providing those services and actually keep that level of service, that high level of service. And one way we can do that is by using technology. And that's what we're really trying to stress to all of my department heads, the city management, mayor and council. How can we leverage technology to provide those services to our citizens? So that's what we'll continue to speak on. It's not trying to be a smart city to be for the sake of being smart. It is
Mm.
really trying to be a smart city so that way we can continue to provide those services for our citizens, both internally, my partners here and the department directors and our staff, and externally, those are our citizens and corporate partners. So how can we do all that together using leveraging technology for what we can do? That's where we are.
That's awesome. I love that. And every city needs a champion for this, right? So, I
Right.
mean, there's so many pieces that have to fall into place to make a smart city happen. And without a champion to help, evangelize or educate or move the process forward,
Right.
cities can struggle a little bit to get things off the ground.
Right.
Recently, you and I were on a panel at Smart Cities
Right.
Connect in DC, and we talked about digital transformation. Can
Right.
you share how Frisco is approaching digital transformation and the lessons learned?
Sure. And so part of that, and that was a great panel. You did a great job facilitating that panel, and we learned a lot. But one of the common themes was, creating a roadmap for digital transformation, really trying to determine what lines of, I'll call it lines of business, should we really be tackling? What should we do? Because if you look at the entire the realm of smart cities, digital transformation, IT, data governance, all of those things, it's a huge pie, huge thing to try to bite off. So
Mm.
really need to tackle and define what are we trying to accomplish by using technology, emerging technology even. What are we trying to accomplish? Are there service levels that we're really looking at? So we've really focused at the very beginning on public safety. We really looked at some of our public safety partners and saying, okay, these are data tools that we can use to help deploy resources, because the deployment of resources in public safety, there's a direct impact in regards to how we can serve our citizens. We can get the calls faster, be more efficient, et cetera, ultimately save lives. So that's one that we can see is readily accessible and it's easy. It's where we start to look at internally, what are we doing? What are we doing with sensors and data, and how can we help our internal partners, whether it be in IT, finance, HR, et cetera. So we're looking at all those different things. I think we're building the roadmap first. And actually, today is a very interesting day because we have a short briefing to our mayor and council who's talking about building that innovation ecosystem and building that roadmap. And I think one of the common things that we talked about in that panel was having a clear direction, making sure that we have that. In our case, we started on the path before we had a clear direction, and that's not uncommon for many cities to do that. When it comes to digital transformation, what pieces are we actually looking to and what are we actually trying to accomplish? But we've taken a step back. We want to build that ecosystem and make sure that we have a roadmap to get there so we can tackle the big pieces that we actually need to do. So partnering with some of our cellular partners like AT&T and T-Mobile, for example, working closely with the city in regards to what kind of sensors can we use to get data and take that data. But once again, we've talked about it in that panel and others. It's great to capture data, and we all capture a lot of data in government. But what can we do to analyze that data and use that analysis of data to actually make some type of corrective, preventative, or responsive action? That's the big piece that a lot of us are missing, is that data analysis piece, and then taking that analysis and actually doing something with it. And so that whole culture of innovation process is what we're working on now. So I feel really strongly that we're building a good foundation for it, so that way we can spread it throughout the organization, even our external customers, so they understand what we're thinking about. So that's where we are right now. So we started down the path, but now we're taking a step back, building the foundation so we can move forward quickly.
I love that. Sometimes I don't want to say false start, but
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with recognizing that maybe the initial approach wasn't as effective as it could be. And so I think it's really great that you can own, that, hey, like maybe we need to walk this back a little bit and re-examine how we're going to approach this. I think that's awesome. And
Sure.
other cities should feel confident in doing that, because it's a learning process and every city is going to have to approach this differently because they serve different kinds of citizens, or different needs of citizens in their cities. And so it's not going to look the same as somebody else does it.
Right. It's exactly, you hit on the nail on the head when you said it's a learning process. It's a learning process that you can evolve from. So it would be one thing if we said, okay, this isn't working, but we continue to do the same thing until it starts working, or we take a pause. There's a pause, a timeout, and said, we understand what is working, what is not working. So now let's build that roadmap so that way we can bring all of our resources in and help build us and move us in the right direction. I feel really strongly about that process. It's
Yeah, no, that's great. And, my experience doing technology consulting, like when you're looking at putting solutions together, it's not always about the technology components themselves, but what are you going to do? Like, I really liked how you talked about once you have the data, like really being able to do the analysis of the data,
right.
because just being able to switch something on and collect
Mhm.
information is not enough to really make something happen. And so you have to
Right.
be prepared to manage the solution, whichever that is, right, once it gets off the ground. And I think we're going to get into a little bit more about that management
Sure.
process here in a minute. Um, so I know that you love Pilot,
That
and
is.
Frisco's been doing some really great pilots.
Mhm.
So I think our audience would love to hear about some of the projects and pilots that you're working on right now.
Sure. So one of the things that, and we talked a lot about pilots while we were in DC at the conference, but we do enjoy pilots. We consider the entire city. You'll hear our mayor say it, our city manager, deputy city manager. I will say it, that the entire city of Frisco is an innovation lab, and we really take that to heart by saying that we're willing to, if it fits our profile, and I'll go back a second too, if it fits our profile in regards to it helps us to be more efficient or productive, uh, we will be more than willing to try a pilot project. And one of the ones that we're working on now that has transitioned, and we'll get to, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but we have Google Wing. It is autonomous drone delivery service that is delivering to our west side of town right now. And it started off with one location and it grew to another. And hopefully there will be some really exciting news in the next couple of weeks about a third location that will serve a greater population. But what we're looking at is really how can we leverage, remember I said emerging technology, to deliver services to our citizens. And so some people say, well, what is a drone delivery service that is delivering, a coffee or ice cream doing? Well, it's actually, it has the ability, and when it's fully functioning, to take cars off the road. We're looking at mobility. We're looking at moving people east and west in our city easier. taking cars off the road, getting services there quicker. So that's one pilot that we're looking at. And it's not even a pilot anymore. We consider that a full-time service delivery method, because we've gone past pilot phase, we've gone testing it, everything works out. So we're going to move forward with that, and we seek to continue that forever. As long as the technology is there, as long as we're good partners, we consider that to be a successful pilot that is now a service delivery. We are piloting just last week, 2 weeks ago, two different types of robots in our municipal library currently now. These robots have a ability to do some wayfinding in the library. We are in the process of building what will be one of the largest libraries in the state of Texas, municipal libraries in the state of Texas. It will be approximately 150,000 square feet on 2 floors. So that's about the size of a super Walmart. And so we are piloting some robotic technology that will help do some internal wayfinding. So if you want to seek the children's area, the robot will be able to take you there. You're looking for study rooms, the robot will be able to take you there. Hopefully, when fully realized and fully implemented, we can actually get to individual locations of books. And that's a piece of technology that they think that they can do with QR codes, and using our current library system for sorting books. And so it's very exciting, and we hope that we can launch that in conjunction with the opening of our library or right after that. So those are just two things where we're looking at technology, emerging tech. And once again, it's great to do pilots because we learn an awful lot about us, and we learn about us as in the city of Frisco. We learn a lot about our technology and our capabilities and our expertise when we do these pilots, but we also learn a lot about technology. We find out what works for us, what fits our profile, what helps us be more efficient. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we move on to the next. And I'm lucky, I'm fortunate that I work in the city and I have the leeway to not only try pilots, but also fail, but with the caveat of failing fast, figure out really quickly if it's something that's working for us. And if it doesn't work, then let's move on to the next thing. If it does work, let's keep pushing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love almost all the things that you talked about immensely because it's so cool. And it's
Yeah.
really great to see how progressive, because I mean, Frisco is one of the fastest growing cities in Texas, but it's
Sure.
not, it doesn't have the same footprint as like an Austin or a Dallas
All right.
or, San
Very true.
Antonio, right? But it's still approaching some really innovative things for its citizens, which is exciting. And the fact that you have a fail fast mentality is really cool. And that kind of leads me into my next question,
Sure.
because I think it's awesome that the wings project is a success, but what happens, like, how do you guys deal with it when it isn't so
Right.
successful?
Sure. That's a great question. And I think, I was teaching, I'm also adjunct at UNT, and I was doing a presentation, and one of the students was very aware of our pilot with Drive AI. We had an autonomous vehicle pilot 2 years ago with Drive AI, and it lasted approximately 9 months. It was a very successful pilot. Technology worked well, but it was deemed at the end of the pilot that it wasn't the best model for us financially to continue. And we ended the pilot, and the student asked, well, why was this pilot project a failure? And I was kind of taken aback and said, what do you mean by failure? Well, you're not doing it anymore. And I think that is a really important piece to kind of explain to everyone, is that if a pilot ends, a pilot should end. It shouldn't. It should be a geographical location or a particular population or a service delivery thing, a model. And there should be a period of time in which we evaluate it and say, is it working for us? Yes. If it's not working for us, then we move on to the next thing. And that is how a pilot should work. It should have an end date with a possibility of moving forward. We did have a pilot during COVID for a food delivery robot, and technology worked. We were able to deploy the resources to get it up and running as a pilot. But when I mentioned before, does it fit our profile? And the service that was actually delivered from this particular pilot didn't really fit our profile. The technology worked, and our citizenry were very interested in doing it, but the actual delivery of the service didn't fit what we were expecting. And so once we had those conversations, we deemed it best that we move on. The technology group that was helping us, they understand and we understand. and it was just time for us to kind of part ways, and that's okay. We write that in the front end on the contract on how we sever, pilot relationships with legal, and we make sure that everyone understands the conditions that we're under. But I think one of the things that's more important than anything is we were able to gather data from that pilot, from both the company and the resources that we put into it. So now here we are 36 months later from there, almost 36 months later, and we are in conversations with another company very similar to that, with a larger robot that would be on the sidewalks in some cases. And all of the information that we captured from the first pilot, we're able to push that to what we're doing now. So we already have a legal template. We already have some police and fire are already aware of how it operates. So everything that we went through on the front end on the first one, we can apply the lessons learned, if you will, to the new pilot, and we're up and running, and we hope to be able to move with that fairly quickly at the beginning of the year, and I'll be able to talk more about it towards that time once we have some agreements in place. But it's looking very promising. But ending a pilot is not the end of the world. It's actually an opportunity for us to reflect a little bit and see what we've learned and where we have gaps organizationally more than anything. The technology usually works. There's usually a gap on our side that we're not able to make it work. So I think that's very important for us to look at pilots and look at them as opportunities to learn a lot about both ourselves and our capabilities.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great because a lot of cities are currently stuck in pilot purgatory
Mhm.
where they have deployed a pilot that they really like, that they're not sure how to take from that level of proof of concept level to actual scale deployment.
Absolutely.
And they kind of get stuck in this, like, well, we can't necessarily let those services go, but we also
Mhm.
can't get to a point where we can implement. So I think it's really great that you sort of walk through some of your past failures, right, or
Mhm.
non-starts,
That's okay.
to be able to model stuff moving forward, which is really fantastic. Um, what are a couple of best practices that you can give, like maybe your top 3 best practices
Mhm.
for cities that are stuck in pilot purgatory that wanna
Mhm.
take their solution to a scaled deployment?
Sure. I think one is having a clear conversation at the very beginning of that pilot with both your internal support structure, so I'll call that mayor and council, and making sure that the expectations internally are very clear, that we're doing this here or we're doing it for 6 months, so that when it ends or we can't move forward or we're ready to move forward in some cases, everyone understands that we've done these steps. So what are the steps? What does success look like? So, like any other pilot or project, really defining what success looks like at the very beginning. So, if we hit these milestones accurately within a time frame, then it's something that we deem to move forward. Um, Trying to get out of pilot purgatory, really, I can't stress having a good relationship with legal,
Mm,
especially municipal legal. I think I gave the example when we were doing one of the pilot panel discussions. There's never any legal statute or code in the state of Texas that says this is how you permit for a autonomous drone delivery service. There's no handbook for something like that. So
mhm.
we're really creating processes on the fly. And so I think spending an inordinate amount of time really walking through what you're trying to do with legal goes a long way to help you have a pilot that uh, can last a long time or actually move out of the pilot phase. So when my legal rep, my legal counterpart understands that the drone is only flying at this speed or is only at this height and is not afraid of water towers or it's not going to run into anyone because he's seen it. He's seen the contract language. We've had multiple meetings with the service delivery model, everything. So they're on board. They can be advocates. I think getting advocates is really big in our departments. I think the other piece for a pilot, if you're touching citizens, is the citizen engagement. If you're doing anything that the citizens will see, they will feel, or you're delivering a service to them, spending another great deal of time on the front end goes an awful long way for long-term buy-in. We made a mistake with the other pilot that I was speaking of. We should have never had a situation where someone saw a robot driving down the road and they call the city and say, what is that thing? It could happen, but when we got multiple calls, we realized we made a mistake with that HOA. We didn't engage them enough. Now, if someone sees a drone, they know exactly what that is because we've blasted it all over the place. They've been in our community parade. We've had a specific town hall meeting about the drones project, everything. So we spent a great deal of time of we'll call citizen engagement for a pilot project. So I think those are a couple of things that I would do if once we start up another one that will be driving on our roadways, we will use that model again of making sure that we're legally sound and we have citizen engagement and buy-in on the front end. And I think that really helps us out. They're saying, yes, the pilot, but we like it. It's working. Now we want to keep it and keep moving. Yeah. So
Awesome.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I just have one more question for you. So,
Sure.
which is a shame because this is such a great conversation. I'm sure we could have more panels
Always.
about this or more, interviews. But what are your last minute thoughts on innovation ecosystems and what's happening in Frisco?
Sure. I think, our desire to build this innovation ecosystem is really drawn from actually being exposed to other great cities, really. We spent some time with Fort Collins, we spent time with Coral Gables, San Antonio, Austin, and we're lucky because even in our region, we have quite a few. The city of Irving, Texas, groups that are, doing really great things. And what we realized here with our developer community, our founder community, our economic development corporation, and how we are attracting businesses from Silicon Valley, and that we have a lot of things here in Frisco, in North Texas region, but we need to put the pieces together. And so I know that I'm approached by a developer or founder maybe twice a day now, and that's probably part of the reason why my position was created, was to handle some of those things. But we are really looking at taking the next step from, piecemeal, putting it together to having a really structured process and how we build this, how we make connections, how we make those collisions that we feel that's the next phase of business. Really is, it might not be a brick and mortar, but it might be an app. It might be a service that's provided. We feel like that's the next phase of emerging tech, and we want that to be here in Frisco, and we know that it can be. And so that's what we're working towards, and that we're putting those foundational pieces, like my position, like my cohort in Economic Development Corporation, Jasmine Brand. She is the director of innovation for the Economic Development Corporation, and she does a great job. But she's on the founder side, she's on the developer side, and the VC side. And so we're putting all those pieces together so that we create this ecosystem that we think can live and flourish here in Frisco and attract a lot of people and satisfy some of the needs of our residents, because that's what we're really here for. Yeah.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of valuable information here, and I look forward to inviting you back next year after maybe some of these other projects have, been deployed, and touch base with you.
I'd be happy to.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Everybody tune in to our next City Chats episode coming up here in a couple of weeks. And with that, I hope you all have a great day.